What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer taking a look at Ice Barrier, my most updated list. It's a bit strange, but honestly, like the most important cards are at three, so it's not the most bizarre list I've ever shown on this channel for sure. So let's go ahead and get into it, and afterwards, I'm going to show you guys some combos, but more like gameplay videos too. So the hand trap lineup, I feel like if you're gonna play modern Yu-Gi-Oh, you have to at least play like at like 8 hand traps. I kind of have that here. It's double Nibiru, triple Gamma Seal, the Sea Turtle, Kaiju, two Draw and Lockbird, and Gamma. Gamma is like a going first or going second strategy. This it doesn't always work out for you, but obviously if you're going second, you see Gamma, it's very good. But opponent has Ash Blossom, they try to do it on your Medallion. This is a very unknown deck, so if your opponent's playing against you, more likely than not, they're not going to know when to hand trap you. So they may think, oh, it's a general searcher. Let me go ahead and ash that. Or you activate it, it resolves, they go for Joel and Lockbird. So obviously it's like a really good opportunity to go into Gamma. Could play, cross out Designator, cards of that nature. But the great thing is if you do get to use Gamma during your turn, and these two cards come out on the field, you can turn them into Dragite. So it does end up equaling out. It is a level 8, which is really, really nice because obviously you're going to be putting a lot of water monsters in the deck. Now, sometimes you'll normal summon, you'll get ashed. It's unfortunate, but I do think that it's high impact enough and it's like much better than Cross Out Designator to be worth it. But yeah, two Nibiru, three Kaiju, two Drawn Lockbird, and then Gamma and Driver. So that is my like going second kind of lineup. This is obviously not a super consistent deck because these are like 2 or 3 card combos. You unfortunately just don't have the opportunity to play like a bunch. Otherwise, it would just be like massively inconsistent. And consistency is the most important thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! By far. 3 Abyss Sharks, this is like one of the best cards in the deck. Something that's like super searchable out. So obviously you're playing 3 copies. I'm going to talk more about Ice Barrier. Seems pretty appropriate to play. I haven't played it before in Ice Barrier, but it actually works really well in the deck. To either, Abyss Shark, obviously, speaking on that card, gives you another fish monster. But just like having 6 copies of it now, by playing Ice Barrier is really cool. Technically, you're playing 7. If you do open up Ice Barrier in your hand, it is something that can be pitched off of Revealer. So I haven't really had, to be honest with you, over the time that I've played this deck, and I've been testing this deck list specifically, like this card has never really been a brick. Sometimes you're going to brick, and that's just like the nature of Yu-Gi-Oh! But like I said, like the most important cards like Abyss Shark, Revealer, and Speaker of the Ice Barrier, those cards are all at 3. So you're going to see them, hopefully as much as possible. And technically now you have 6 copies of Abyss Shark, and this is the best extender in the entire deck, which is really nice. I only run 1 Abyss Shark. I used to run like 3 copies of it. It is a good discard off the Revealer, but it's like kind of good just as a one flex spot, and I think that's like a big advantage of playing Ice Barrier is like it's essentially you are playing more copies of Abyss Shark, but you can get more out of it. Normally, this is just discard fodder. It's really good. It's great for follow up. But I've like kind of thrown in a few tech choices here. One of them is going to be the Dream Shark. It's free special summon 5 from the hand. There's tons of options for this. Some of them lock you out of special summoning from the hand, and that's kind of bad in the deck. So Dream Shark kind of has fit that role. But a lot of the times with this shark, you're going to switch out Crystal Shark. But if you open it, you kind of have these flex spots. So like I said, I'm really happy to play Ice Barrier now, the trap, because I feel like it kind of equals everything out. Something that's super new about the deck is 2 Marincess Sleepy Maiden. This card is an extender from the hand. It's a level 5. It's really good. Helps you go into Nash Knight, which is really one of the best cards in the deck. It's something that I have evolved over time. I'll talk about that more when I get into the extra deck, but it does special summon itself from the hand. Your normal Ice Barrier combo lines do go through Coral Anemone, so this card is not a brick in your hand, and then there's a lot of times you can do some really cool stuff on it, and hopefully you'll be able to see that in the gameplay videos after this deck profile. 3 copies of Revealer. Might as well just throw this in here too. 3 copies of Speaker of the Ice Barrier. These cards obviously work in tandem extremely well. There's a lot of potential when it comes to Ice Barrier. At the very least, of the casual scene, it's these two. If you see these 2 cards in your opening hand, most of the times you're gonna have a pretty good end board. Speaking of Marincess, there are 2 Blue Tang, and this is like kind of where you can diverge, do your own thing. This is kind of good discard fodder. I used to play the Dragoon engine. It's a little inconsistent. It is pretty good, and like the old deck list I did, you could definitely use. It's fine. It's a very similar play style, just a little bit different, but there's some really awesome things. This card has 1500 attack, No surprise there. It's a Marincess card. It can be brought back with Marincess Coral, so you can revive, with the Coral Anemone, bring back Blue Tang off of, after you discarded it with Revealer, and then you can use its effect, and then you can Foolish Burial Marincess Sleepy Maiden, and then like after you link off this Coral Anemone from the graveyard, it lets you add back the Sleepy Maiden, which ends up being an extender. So it's like an extra copy of it. I'm playing two copies of Sleepy Maiden, but that also, just becomes higher because you're playing Ice Barrier. Ice Barrier searches you a level 5 water monster. So the two cards kind of do work in tandem, and I do like them. Also, this, realistically speaking, Revealer of the Ice Barrier is only it's the only normal summon in the deck. So if you open a hand where you don't have it, Blue Tang is actually pretty good. Now you could play Small World, and I think that's valid, but and again, I think you can play it, but I do like kind of these higher end chances instead of like losing a card off a Small World and like maybe having an awkward line. You can just normal summon Blue Tang and kind of go through some of these Marincess plays when you don't have another normal summon. One card that's super underrated and I think needs to be played, and I'm like pretty sure it's like pretty standard, and I'm like just like getting late on the scene, is Silent Sea Nettle. This card is just literally a free special summon, and almost equally as important, it recycles things back. So one of the new power cards is World Sea Dragons Atlantis, but even before this card, there was all this recursion, and honestly some cards that you really wanted to see multiple times, especially as duels go on past like the third turn, that you'd like to see these cards recycled. This is a free special summon, and it does it for free from the graveyard. You get to shuffle them back. Being able to shuffle back the whole Marincess line, more importantly, the Anemone, is huge and opened up some crazy things. This is a must in Ice Barrier decks, in my opinion. On to the Ice Barrier stuff. So Warlock obviously is like the most important card. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, both players must set spell cards before acting them and cannot activate them until their next turn. Their next turn. So it is actually kind of like better anti-spell fragrance. It's incredible. It is like one of the unique things about Ice Barrier that I think really falls under the radar, mostly because Ice Barrier is renowned as a horrible deck, and it's definitely not like super, super good, but this card is super underrated. It does something that I don't think any other deck in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Can realistically do on a consistent basis, and this deck can definitely do that really, really well. Warlock obviously just locks your opponent out of activating probably the most, well, not the most important card type, but traps you can kind of throw under the radar. But spell cards, like a lot of like really good decks, Runic, Pearly, you can go down the list too, like even thinking about Kashtira, like the power of those decks come in their spell cards. So really cool to see a card in Ice Barrier specifically that is just like super anti, like, and maybe even a win condition against most decks. Think about going second staples, Thrust, Triple Tactics, Talent, Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler. All these cards mean nothing against War or Ice Barrier when you get the combo set up. Defender, it's a secondary target when it comes to Revealer. Kind of important. Definitely always want to have an option to bring out. It's good on the crackback if you can do it. Same thing about Zujin. I've thought about cutting this card like 1,000 times, and probably you honestly really could, and maybe you play another copy of Moray of Greed. But there have been enough duels. This card honestly should just say, like, instead of, you can't bring it back until the turn after it's sent to the graveyard, which is just really, really lame. But it's great follow-up. It's good discard fodder. And it has come up multiple times. But like I said, this is maybe a card that you might want to cut. But it is just something that you can send off of Hexa. And there's been so many times where I've needed to do it. There's been other times where I brought it back from the graveyard. It just doesn't happen super, super often. So it's just like one of those cards, excuse me, it's on the fence. 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, 3 copy of Medallion, a non-1 return Omni Searcher for the archetype. Obviously, that's very good. I do run 1 copy of Moray Agreed. Like I said, maybe you want to cut a copy of Zujin. Maybe you want to cut your copies of Blue Tang. I'm not sure, but I think you should at least play 1. Maybe this can be Small World. Maybe this can be, like a pot of card of your choice, like one of those things. But I don't know. I'm testing around, but this is only 1 card in the deck list, and I think the rest of the list is pretty solid. So, it is what it is for now. 1 copy of Ice Barrier. This is the trap. It's a searcher for level 5s, which is really good for a Bishark. If you already have a Bishark, you can search Crystal Shark. You can search Dream Shark. You can search Sleepy Maiden. It really fits in and is never, ever, ever really a brick. Like when you have the option to activate Ice Barrier. one copy of Marincess Wave. So this is like one of the newer tech cards. There's like these really good lines here with Blue Tang and Sleepy Maiden. Works out really well. This is basically an imperm from the hand and then called by the grave. This is a combo deck. Like I said, you could play cross out maybe 3 of here, but then you're playing like less hand traps, and that's just kind of unfortunate. Sometimes you lose the hand traps and then you just lose. You know what I mean? You're playing Ice Barrier. What are you going to do? Going on into the extra deck, you do play Trishul. Obviously, the new one is incredible. Sometimes you can synchro summon it during your opponent's turn using the Christian Quandax. Trishul, the original, this is like good to go into. Adamantipator is fairly easy to go into. Something that you can, some cool things that you can do. Like Dragite can go ahead. Like sometimes you can go into Quandex on your follow-up turn after you set up your board, bring back something. This can be either used as a rank 4 or as a tuner 4. There's a lot of uses for it, and this card is really important, besides the fact that it can synchro summon during your opponent's turn. So really nice. These cards kind of work really well together, and one thing I like about the deck is that it does go into multiple different summoning mechanics. So like something like Dimensional Barrier is just a little less impactful for this deck. Nash Knight. So that goes along with this little package here. So Nash Knight lets you non-targeting attach an opponent's monster from the field, which is really, really, really important. It's a really great farm removal, super underrated. Before I was going into like this 101 package, which isn't good, and now there's a better one. It's the number 104. So basically, C104 lets you negate an opponent's monster as a quick effect during your opponent's turn on the field, and then your opponent has to discard a card. So really cool. Also, when it's summoned, it pops a spell and trap. One thing that's like kind of wrong about this is that Foolish Burial Goods, or I should more importantly say Ice Barrier, locks you out of water monsters till the end of your next turn. So that's kind of unfortunate. So you can't immediately go into C104 if you do activate Ice Barrier. But to be honest with you, the long-term plan, it is worth it. Also, it's worth noting that you can activate Nash Knight twice given this engine. The first thing you're always going to attach is 104. But if you do activate Ice Barrier, you can at least attach again with C104. Not the ideal scenario. You kind of want to go into this, but it is worth noting. Also, if you want to talk about the Nash Knight engine, another one that's like interesting to go into because Nash Knight talks about numbers 101 through 107, and this is 107. Kind of gives you the opportunity to go into number C107 and use this effect to attack 3 monsters with a 4,500 attack body. Maybe worth noting, maybe not. It's just one of those cards that I think you really can think about. This attaches anything from 101 to 107, and the Nash Knight helps you bring it out. So all of these cards are going to have like their good effects. I just think the best one is C104, and I'm sure most people would agree with me there. Bahamut Shark helps you go into Totally Awesome. Stealth Kragan is a good option, just like in general, for popping cards or finishing games. Every single turn is a quick effect pop. It's a very good card. The Marincess engine, this is obviously like the really new stuff here. Marincess Aqua Argonauts, Marincess Coral Triangle, and this is an enemy that's not different. One card that is super different in terms of my list, and that is World Sea Dragon Zelantis. You lock yourself into water almost immediately. It's kind of the point of the whole deck. It's a water deck. Now, the important part about Zelantis is when you activate this effect to banish all monsters on the field, you do special summon back, but it is you use special summoning. So if you do activate Zelantis, you're going to bring back your monsters, and your opponent will not have any, because instead of, it's basically, even though it's your opponent's monsters, it counts as you special summoning them back yourself. Well, if you're locked into waters, you cannot special summon that back. So this is one of the best forms of removal, non-targeting banishment of the entire field. It's like Raigeki banishment, which is great. Non-destruction. I don't know why I haven't been using this card, but it's so good on that next turn follow-up when you have Argonaut, which isn't going to be useful because you don't run the Marincess field spell that attaches all of these Marincess cards. Like, basically, Sleepy Maiden is the access to this card, Marincess Aqua Argonaut. Very unfortunate, by the way, that Triangle requires 2 Marincess monsters, not 2 water monsters, including a Marincess, which it should have been, by the way, but it's not. This card searches you, Marincess Wave. But yeah, that is the deck list. Let's go ahead and jump over to, I don't know what I did, but let's go ahead and jump over to the replays here. And I'm going to show you basically the best combo that I can first, and that is going to be I don't even really know what the deck is, to be completely honest with you, but take a look. This is as good as it gets. Like I said, this is as good as it gets. And like I said, the Ice Barrier is really good discard fodder for the Ice Barrier. So this is going to work out really, really well for me. So I'm going to discard Ice Barrier, and as a result, I also get to search. Everything in my hand is an extender at this point. So Bahamut Shark is going to give me the Omni Negate. I can send Warlock, which basically is anti-spell fragrance, like I've been talking about. Change those into Coral Anemone, which is going to bring back the anti-spell on legs. And those can get changed into, the triangle, which lets me add back the enemy, which gives me free discard fodder. I have not used Abyss Shark yet, which is really, really incredible. I can change those into the Argonaut, and this is also going to give me, really good, removal in the form of Nash Knight. A couple of things here. Normally you have to worry about things like Dark Ruler No More or Lightning Storm, but you don't in this deck. So you're kind of covered from everything you could ever really be worried about. This is a Spell Negate. This is Marincess Wave. This is Nash Knight. This is totally awesome. You can change those. This card also lets you send cards back to the hand. And Quandex, unfortunately, wasn't doing anything for me at that time. And I think I could have gone for game two, but I really just wanted to showcase that end board. My opponent's just like really low in card advantage at this point. I still have an Omni Negate. I still have Nash Knight. I did use the Argonaut, but Marincess Wave gets special summon, and I get to use it again, which is really important. This is against Blue Eyes. This is a casual deck, so I think it's more appropriate to show casual tools with it. Don't expect to, pull up to some really important stuff or like get Cash Tira or anything like that and beat them. I will show a duel against Pearly, which was kind of interesting, but yeah, this is Blue Eyes. He does have Hope Harbinger and Baldrake, which is two forms of interruption going second. I did have Droll, which definitely helped against, something like your danger cards. I can bring this out. I am going to go for, I think, the rank 5 interruption, which is Nash Knight. He is going to go for Baldrake. He chains the Bahamut, or the Magnemite, but he doesn't get to use effect, right? The search would have activated on the next chain, but I was able to activate it, in chain basically, so it never got to that point. So no searchers for him. Not that it would have super duper mattered because I don't run any light or dark monsters, right? That's like kind of the whole thing. He special summoned the Chaos Emperor, and I just popped there. So, and it's nice to have Coral Anemone on the field, of course, because you get to Rod Reborn every single turn. And if you have anything in your hand that is an extender, that's just crazy levels of follow-up. All right, so this is one of those hands where I think Blue Ting really shines. My opponent did get to go first. I was able to beat him games first and second. First two on the die roll, I beat him. And I think this is game one. I think you get to see Zelantis in this video, or in this duel, I should say. He's going to go for Chaos Emperor. Didn't use the effect, and I was actually kind of surprised, to be honest with you, but he didn't. He does have Hope Harbinger, and he grabbed the Blue Eyes White Dragon. I was surprised he didn't go for Jet Dragon or Abyss, but it is what it is. I do run the Kaijus, obviously, because of that Moray of Greed. I did have the extender, and this is just looking really, really good. I normal summon so I can bring back the Maiden. Maiden is going to be an extender later. And as long as I can go into Zelantis, these three monsters are gone. And in fact, this Gamma Seal comes back to me because I own the Gamma Seal, which is just really kind of cool, to be honest with you. I think I get to search the Continuous Trap. I get to send something like Zujin. So that's like kind of the use of it, obviously. And there goes Zelantis. All those get back. And even though I Kaiju'd my opponent, the Kaiju comes back to me after everything gets back with Zelantis, which is nice. And this is where actually the Sea Nettle comes into play, because I went through my entire Marincess engine. I'd like to use it, and I kind of couldn't, but now I can. It's like I was able to recycle them back and then set up my board. So I had a non-targeted attachment and at least a imperm with 2 cards. I feel fairly confident about that on some sort of level. Against Blue Eyes, obviously you feel really confident, but the point still stands. I get to go first here. A little bit awkward, but again, you get to do some, and this is like the cool part about this list is like, normally I feel like an Ice Bear, if you don't see Speaker and Revealer in your opening, you're not really playing. And I'm planning on playing like all these other extenders in the deck that really help me out. Here goes Marincess Sleepy Maiden. I can go into the Link 3. I know it's cool, right? You can discard like Crystal Shark or something like that, and that's pretty neat. But I am going to have a spell and trap negate, a imperm, and then I am going to also have the Nashonite. So for a board that doesn't include any ice barrier monsters, which would normally just be like super bricks, right? If you don't see those two cards really on Speaker, you're not really playing at all. My opponent's going to kind of go for this Infinity line. I'm just going to go ahead and take that, of course. I still have two cards here. Being able to special summon this, and then, the Coral Enemy is online. I top deck Moray of Greed, and it kind of is what it is, but having Crystal Shark in rotation just shows how important that is, because Abyss Shark and Crystal Shark can be treated as fours for number monsters. So if you can just like use Coral Enemy at the very least, right? I didn't open up I didn't draw anything that I could use like go into synchro summons, but it's always going to be online. You can bring back a Abyss Shark and then immediately use Crystal Shark, which you just use with Nashonite. And that's pretty neat. This is against Jinzo. I don't know when I'm ever going to be able to show someone playing Jinzo, so here we go. It's a 50 card list. Who would have thought? I don't know. Jinzo I may end up exploring, but I think I read this support one time and it was like the worst thing ever. Again, you can see the ice barrier is good, whether or not you open up foolish burial goods or, the trap itself. If you open up both, you probably lose the duel just because of how awkward it is, but I'm willing to take the risk because most of the time it's going to be good. Seeing either of those cards. Crystal Shark here. Now, this isn't the best setup, but, if your opponent does have, like, all these powerful spell cards, they're not going to really be able to do anything. Plus, I have Droll, and I think that's super, super important. Law of the Cosmos isn't going to do anything. I think I had Lethal here. He's going to go to the end phase, but that's okay. So, these can go ahead and get turned into Klondaks. I can bring back a 4 and then change those into Bahamut Shark. So I can either use it for a synchro summon or an XYZ summon of a rank 4, which is like the most common XYZ type in this deck. So Stealth Craig and Nashonite and Totally Awesome on the crackback. I should have changed these. I should have special summoned Dream Shark and gone into the 4 because I was 200 life points off. So that was like kind of silly of me. I kind of feel like he was going to go for Dark Ruler no more, but it's okay. This might even be more of a flex because any monster with more than 400 attack is just like game for him, and I was able to burn him for damage. But like a pretty cool, duel nonetheless. This is against Numeron. Obviously, you can see pretty cool. Speaker is actually like a better card than it needs to be on some level. I can't really describe it, but like you can normal summon and then still special summon Speaker. It doesn't say you can special summon this to control an ice barrier monster except the copy of itself. And it also summons the token whether or not it is like Speaker. So most of the time Yu-Gi-Oh cards have that restriction except for itself, but Speaker doesn't. So I think that's worth noting. I can go into a free one there. I can bring back the Warlock, and then Crystal Shark was also in the graveyard. This is obviously like the ideal setup when it comes to Ice Barrier. They can't activate spell cards. You have the Omni Negate available. You have the non-targeting disruption. Like Numeron Network is good and all, but you can't use it, right? You're just like not going to be able to do anything. This is like objectively like a pretty good end board, like for Yu-Gi-Oh, just in general. I think for, like in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh, because spell cards are so powerful. Just a couple more, excuse me, duels here. I think one of them Obelisk, and I've never really looked at Obelisk this way, but I think there's actually like a lot of potential when it comes to its deck. One of the spell cards brings it out. It can't be negated, and also like the Obelisk that comes out is unaffected by card effects. A 4K body that's unaffected is pretty good. And obviously the quick play spell for it is pretty good too. No spell cards, and I do have an Omni Negate. Not very strong, but at least I have Droll, and I feel like that helps me. He's going to set 4 and pass. Yeah, the breaking like can't be negated. So even though I think this card, is on the board, I can't really use it. The Foolish Burial gives us really good off the top. It's going to give me Abyss Shark. The Silent Sea Nettle is a free special summon as a 4. There's so many good things that you can do with Klondike's. It's kind of ridiculous. It's really just like such a good card. It opens up the zone for Coral Enemy to bring back another monster too, which is it just changed the entire complexion of the duel. Okay, so I can probably go into boom, just like that. The Trishul. I think I ended up targeting or trying to get rid of Obelisk. That was just a mistake by me, but at least I do have the the Dragite. This can't be negated. So again, you can kind of see how scary it is, but he just didn't have enough, obviously to like make anything happen. The Obelisk was going to be dead at the end phase, and I was going to just be able to like essentially just push for game, especially with Coral Enemy, like having the Monster Reborn every single turn is just like really, really good. And the last one here is against Pearly. It's kind of awkward. In fact, to make like a really bad mistake, but again, like this is a really awkward hand of like if you're playing Ice Barrier. The blue tank doesn't, or excuse me, like this hand doesn't really do anything regularly for Ice Barriers, but the normal summon of blue tank makes it like significantly better. Also, like opens up my Zelantis lines, which are going to be super important. I top decked the Revealer, so I was like, kind of is what it is. Oh, this is so annoying. Like this is like the worst possible card I think for this situation. And that Abyss Shark makes you so you have to control all water monsters. Now, Bahamut Shark is a water monster, but face down cards in Yu-Gi-Oh are like such a nightmare. So I technically doesn't know if I control all water monsters. So Abyss Shark is offline, and that stinks. But Blue Tang can go ahead and activate, hoping to find a Marincess card as like a free card. It didn't end up happening. I don't think I've used Sleepy Maiden yet because of Blue Tang. So at least I have a monster negate, and I do have an imperm. It's going to have to last me. He's going to get a search with a continuous spell. I think I'm going to stop that just so Coral Enemy is online. Argonaut obviously makes your opponent attack that card, so that makes a big difference. I knew he had Dark Ruler in hand. He didn't use it, and that was like super surprising. Maybe he didn't read the card or what, but I have a chance here. He's going to try to go to the battle phase, but he can't. Argonaut's a little too big. He can't go into the Coral Enemy. Now he's going to change this into Noir, shuffle back, which that card doesn't even really do anything, to be honest with you. I can flip that, go into Totally Awesome. He wasn't able to get rid of it. I can bring that back, go into Zelantis. See you later. These cards are banished. They're not coming back because of Zelantis. And look at the zone I put this in. Yikes, what a nightmare. Like literally the only zone on the field I couldn't. But even then, like I think I don't really see anything in the graveyard that can help me, come back from this. But um I did have Droll, and that was just kind of like the end of it, right? He's gonna search a card, and both of these search, I think, on activation. So this card can't do anything. I think he gets to go into like Noir, but what is that, realistically doing? So yeah, that is my most updated Ice Barrier list. I didn't realize how long this video was going to be, but here we are. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. That's going to do it for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.